Kadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom,
Once again, Shabbat Shalom and welcome to all of those that are here with us in the chapel, all of those joining us via the live stream. We are so glad to welcome in Shabbat with you, and also tomorrow to call two very special people to Torah, and to start off this weekend for them, we'd like to invite up their parents to lead us in the Shabbat candle blessings. I'd like to invite up the Benjamins.
Yes.
No, here.
Oh,
As we light these Shabbat candles, we link ourselves with the generations of our people who have kindled these holy flames. Time passes quickly, and we take this moment to pause and express our gratitude. We stand here as a family with humility and with love for the occasion,
for one another,
and for being a part of this sacred community. Do you want to take turns?
No.
Okay.
We'll just, as we participate
in this age-old ritual, we embrace this moment as we move forward in the cycle of our lives. Yesterday, we held our children in our arms, and tomorrow they will be called to the Torah as Benot Mitzvah. These Shabbat candles remind us not only of the joy of this occasion, but they help us to see the light within one another and the strengths that each of us possesses.
Grateful
for all of the precious gifts in our lives, we kindle the Shabbat lights.
You could do both. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Judaism is very focused on the soul. Our sages teach us that we gain an extra soul on Shabbat, that we then relinquish that soul when we begin the Havdalah rituals, when we say goodbye to Shabbat on Saturday evening, that our souls are taken from us each night when we lie down to sleep and restored to us each morning when we wake up and we take that first breath. Our souls are innately connected to Shabbat, to the experience of breath, and to the experience of being together in community. As we enter this Shabbat, we do so with this intention, these words that you'll see on the screen behind me, set for us by our psalmist and set to music by a community in Jerusalem called Nava Tehillah. Lev tahor barali Elohim, create a pure heart within me, the ruach nachon chadesh b'kirbi, and bless me with a good, correct, right, righteous soul. So as we welcome Shabbat, we breathe in, we let out that breath, and with it the heaviness of the week. We breathe in again and call to mind the sweetness of Shabbat, asking God to open our hearts, open our eyes, open our minds, and even open our souls. So create a pure heart in me, great Spirit, a melody brought right to us from the Holy Land. Listen, breathe, and if you feel so inclined, lift your voice and join us.
Create a pure heart in me, great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me.
Try that with us.
Create a pure heart in me, great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. Create a pure heart. Create a pure heart in me, great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within.
With our hearts and our souls open, we turn to Lecha Dodi. You can find it on page 20 in your prayer books. This joyful melody. Please join us, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Erev Shabbat
Shabbat nekavela Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Ki hishmianu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemo tiferet v'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor haveracha Mirosh mikedem lesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Hitoreri, hitoreri Ki va'orech kumi ori Uri, uri, shir daveri Kvod Adonai alayich nidla Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Lecha dodi likrat kala Peni Shabbat nekavela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה one more time לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. The band and I were laughing before services because I said, if they feel like they're into it and they start singing, I'm just going to go like this and we'll keep going. And so this, I didn't do that, but I was close. So it's, I hope you can tell how much joy it brings us when we're all in community together singing along. So it really feels good. Shabbat Shalom.
Beautiful. We'll continue with Hatzi Kaddish, page 145, if you're following along in the prayer book.
Yitkadash Shemei Rabba, Amen. Ve'alema diverach chirutei, ve'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yom echon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala, ba'agala, u'v'yizman kariv, ve'imeru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba mevarach, le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh, ve'yitadar ve'yitaleh ve'yitalal, shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran me'olema ve'imeru Amen.
I'll invite invite you to please rise for Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei hoshech, v'hoshech mipnei or.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. Amen.
We'll continue responsively. In each age, we receive and transmit Torah. At each moment, we are addressed by the world.
In each age, we are challenged by our ancient teaching. At each moment, we stand face to face with truth.
In each age, we add our wisdom to that which has gone before. At each moment, the knowing heart is filled with wonder.
In each age, the children of Torah become its builders and seek to set the world firm on a foundation of truth. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto leolam va'ed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom. Micha Ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Yadadai ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל אמן.
We continue with the words of Hashkivenu, asking God to spread a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, over us, over all we love, over Israel. Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim Hashkivenu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim May you shelter us with peace until the morning comes. May you lay us down with love, and may you raise us up. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim
I'll invite you to please rise for the blessings of the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el El Hagadol Hagibur V'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh Hakol V'Zocher Chaste Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'Neihem Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye HaKol Ata Rav Lehoshia Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umidam Melach Melech Memit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol Baruch ata Adonai Mechaye hakol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh Ukadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah Baruch ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. And at this point in our service, we turn our thoughts and prayers to those who are in need of healing on this Shabbat. We're praying for Cindy Baker, Ira Bernstein, Ada Barbara Corvelli, Moshe Danielle, Elliot Goldstein, Rick Gratt, Ivy Kirschenbaum, Julie Levine, David Rothman, Sharon Saltzman, Teresa Schlossberg, Tammy Schwartzberg, Shmuel Ben Rivka, and Barry Suskin. And if there's anybody you're praying for this evening, names that you're holding in your hearts, I invite you to share them out loud and with the name and the relation if you feel so inclined. David? Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals the sick.
Mekor habracha leim
We turn from the healing of the body to the healing of our world, praying for that blessing of peace, not only here at home, but specifically this week at this time in Israel and around the world. Shalom Rav, page 164.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon lecho hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
This morning, I mentioned on our Boker Tov message that this evening now, as we enter into Shabbat, we are also entering Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's the beginning of the month of Nisan that is actually the beginning of the Hebrew calendar. It's different than Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the new year, marking the creation of the world. Rosh Chodesh Nisan marks the exodus from Egypt and what we think of as the beginning of the Jewish people based on the freedom and liberation of coming out of Egypt. As we enter this new month and this year, I'm reflecting on the words that we sang at the beginning of services tonight. A pure heart, a lev tahor. What does it mean to enter into this new month, to enter into this Shabbat even, with that pure heart, with that sense of clarity, with that sense of direction, and with a renewed spirit that not just allows us to be, but really allows us to feel truly free in the sense that we do during the month of Nisan? We'll take a few moments to pray silently.
Lev tahor virali Elohim veruach nachon Kadesh bekirbi. Create a pure heart within me, and let my soul wake up in your light. Open me to your presence, flood me with your Holy Spirit. Create a pure heart within me, and let my soul wake up in your light. Open me to your presence, flood me with your Holy Spirit, and I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness, and I will teach your love to the lonely, and the lost will find their way home. Create a pure heart within me, and let my soul wake up in your light. Open me to your presence, flood me with your Holy Spirit, and I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness, and I will teach your love to the lonely, and the lost will find their way home. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise. Oh, Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Mazel Tov. I had an odd experience this week, one that I'm glad to say I haven't had in a while. I think most of us don't, given the microchips with which our cars are made. I was going to have lunch with a past president of the congregation, and a light started going off, and it said, "Transmission in trouble," something like that. And then the next one said, "Steering not working." And then it went on to say, you could imagine, but like 5 lights started blinking. And I knew enough, I guess, you have enough of age that I was close enough to home, figured Eric Sellinger would be okay with me being late for lunch if I was going to be safe. I took another car. Lauren wasn't working, and she said, "You better get that into the shop." And so she made an appointment for me. And on Wednesday, which is my day off, I headed down towards Milburn Avenue. For those of you who've grown up around here, you know Cypress Street, took Cypress down. And the lights now are just going on and on and on, and the car just shuts down. But I'm on a hill, and I figure, let me just ride this as much as I can. Let me get to the dealership. And but there are stop signs, and at Cypress and Ridgewood, I stop. A little bit into the intersection, the car is just dead. 2 years old. It doesn't really happen that often anymore. So the following, of course, the dealership doesn't send a tow truck, even though it's 2 blocks, 3 blocks from the dealership. God forbid should they send a tow truck. It's against their rules. So I call for service, and I now have to wait an hour and a half for the tow truck to come. But the following hour and a half is an extraordinary social laboratory experiment. I have about 35% of the people who drive by and say, "Hey, what are you doing there, you idiot? Can't you get out of the road? Why are you on your phone? Shouldn't you be moving? How come you don't have your blinkers on?" Words that are not so generous, words that did not have too much compassion, words that actually felt downright mean, given the fact that I was stuck on the side of the road and was sort of cold out. I was wearing my running clothes, hoping to get a run in after that. The next 30% of the people said things like, and by the way, interestingly enough, mostly air conditioner repair people, landscapers. "Sir, are you okay? Can I help you? Can I push your car with my car so you're out of the intersection?" Explaining to them, of course, that there's no neutral, the car is dead completely. But words this time full of generosity, full of kindness, full of decency. Then I get a couple of Jake's baseball teammates' fathers who happen to be driving by, and they stop, make sure I'm okay, and almost like there's nothing else going on, "You see the Knicks game last night?" And they get into, "We want to talk about basketball." I'm saying, "Okay." And then, of course, I'm the rabbi of a congregation of 1,250 families. A couple of TBJ members come by. "Rabbi Matt, are you okay?" So communal words of love. And the words have been resonating. The tow truck came, got to the dealership, and I need an alternator. It's being put in. We'll be ready in the next day or so. All will be fine. But I didn't stop thinking about the words that people chose to express to me during that hour and a half experience. And then I thought that our religion, Judaism, is obsessed with a lot of things. But in the top 5 obsessions that Judaism has, it is with words. Obsessed with words. After all, how did God create the world? Not with metaphorical arms, but with words. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That's how it happened. Just like God created with words, God creates blessing, and also we know that our words can cause extraordinary curse. I ask confirmation students that I've had 15, 20, 25 years ago, "The time you called me paranoid, Rabbi Matt, I'll never forget that." "I called you paranoid?" As my father would say in Yiddish, how do I know neither here from there? But Judaism's obsessed with words. In fact, the Talmud, so much so that there's a story of someone going shopping at the butcher in the marketplace. And one rabbi says to the other, "What kind of meat should I get? What's the most important piece of meat you can get at the butcher's market?" And he says, "Of course, it's tongue." I hate tongue, by the way. And he says, "Why tongue?" He says, "Because the tongue can create, it can heal, or it can destroy. It is the most important piece of meat that exists." In fact, the Talmud goes on and says you have to be so careful with words. I remember, Harriet, years ago in a class I taught this, and you were so upset that the Talmud said this, that you can't go into a marketplace and argue, meaning bargain, over a pair of pants, or in those days, a box of rice. Once you engage a shopkeeper, you are using your words to make him think that he is going to make a profit off of your words, and you cannot change those words. You have to buy from that shopkeeper. It also goes on to say that if you're stopped for directions, you're down South Orange Avenue and someone stops you and asks you how to get to a certain place, unless you know exactly how to send him or her there, you can't tell them. Even if it's approximately close, you cannot tell them because your words cannot lead people astray. What the Talmud is most concerned with is something called halbanat panim. It means the draining of the blood from your face. When words are said to you in a way that publicly embarrasses you, and some of us get red in the face, some of us lose the color in our face, that public embarrassment, and hear this, is worse than committing murder. The Talmud holds you accountable worse than committing murder because the Talmud goes on to say, at least with murder, you get to leave. If you live with a reputation that is not correct, you never escape that reputation. Obsessed with words. The question is why? What are they ultimately so concerned about? They're concerned about this. Psst. I want to tell you something. Bill, did you know? Yes, I did. You did, right? Peggy told you, right? I told her not to tell anyone, but I know she told you. She did, right? We love the grapevine. Thank you for playing along. We love the grapevine. We salivate over the grapevine. We can't wait to go on a walk with someone and tell them what we heard in town. We can't wait. I remember I lived on a kibbutz for a year. Talk about every story being told over and over and over again. We love it. We love to be in the know. We love to be able to connect to people, feel superior over what we know. And by the way, it could be truth or it could be not truth. The Talmud says that it is so dangerous to gossip, so dangerous to use our words in a way that could be tale-bearing, so dangerous in a way, again, even if you're telling the truth, if you're telling the wrong person at the wrong time, it could change their worlds. And what are they worried about? They're worried about the insidious breakdown of community, that somehow truths become mistruths and mistruths become truths. We know over the last few years how that resonates with us one way or the other. But forget about sort of the larger scale. We know what it can do to a community. We know what creating narratives about people can actually do to people's reputations. Judaism is lock-on focused about it because they worry that communities will be destroyed by us not using our words judiciously. Thank you. So you come to this week's Torah portion, and you guys, are the winners, right? You get this great Torah portion about Tazria, and I'm not going to go on and on and on, but one of the wonderful things you get to talk about is leprosy. It's exciting. I didn't tell you the rest. That's the best thing they get to talk about is leprosy. So leprosy, of course, is this horrible disease, at least in the Bible, is seen as such, one that oozes and has pus and is unbelievably contagious. I know, disgusting, Pam, I told you. But what did they do with people back then? Antiquated in its thought, but it made sense. They had no idea how to deal with it. So they took people, right, and they put them outside of the walls of the city. They isolated them. They thought that there was no way that they could actually deal with it. So bad enough that you have this horrible disease, that you're oozing all this disgusting stuff, but you're also taken and sent away from your community and from your family. So the rabbis of old, when they read this hundreds, if not thousands of years later, don't know what to do with it. Not just with the disease, but how it is that they treat people with the disease. So they do something fascinating. That's sort of dangerous, but something that I think all of us do. They take some kind of rational reasoning and assign it to something that they don't understand, that's random, that's non-rational. So what do they say? They say that obviously every person who has leprosy has committed a spiritual sin, a human sin that is so bad that it manifests in leprosy. What is that human sin? Gossip. That somehow those people who did those things, you wouldn't get such a horrible disease unless you committed this transgression of gossip. Now again, it makes no rational sense to all of us, although again, many of us try to assign irrational reasons or rational reasons to irrational outcomes. That we do all the time. We could all take turns talking about what kind of neuroses we have. We're not on the couch, we're in synagogue, we won't do that here. But the reason it does make sense for the rabbis is both of these things, gossip and leprosy, separate the community, rip apart the fabric, are incredibly contagious. So that's how they connect them. And they come to us with a wink and a nod saying, be very careful before you make fun of us for how it is that we've assigned gossip to this disease, because words in your own time can rip apart your own community. And they do. Words impact us so significantly. I know you're going to think this is coming out of left field, but here are a few examples. Does anyone know, I just read this recently, and this is not assigning political like or dislike. Does anyone know why Donald Trump ran for president, what his final impetus was? I'm not rhetorical. Does anyone know the night that it happened? I guess you didn't read what I read. He was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I think 14 or 15, and we all know what the Correspondents' Dinner is about, right? It's the speechwriters getting the president up there to make fun of him or herself, not yet her, unfortunately, but himself, and making fun of anyone else they want to. Well, that night, Barack Obama went off on Donald Trump. And I mean, really, whoever writer really wrote to, and Trump was so upset that he leaned over to Melania, and up they went, and they left the dinner. A guy who obviously knows how to use his mouth as well, didn't like it too much when he was beaten up that night, And apparently, at least according to the article, he goes home and says, I'll show them I'm running for president. And look, he showed, he won, right? Donald Trump. I'm trying to think, see, here 56 years old, you do forget a couple of things. So a couple of years back, probably 5 years back now, Monica Lewinsky was here. Anyone was there that day for the, okay. So Monica Lewinsky was at the Women's Association lunch. And during the Q&A, someone asked her, so I think she's now in her early 40s. So the typical Jewish mother, what do you ask someone in the 40s? Why aren't you married? And she said, dating hasn't been easy. In fact, most recently, do you remember this, Marilyn? Most recently, she said, I was finally like on a 4th or 5th date, it was getting serious. And the guy says, hey, Monica, would you put on the beret tonight? We all remember the beret, right? Well, it was part of her outfit. And she said, these are the words that I live with. This is a pretty regular thing that happens to me, that people say these things to me, that either slut shame or fat shame, or she went on and on and on. Well, those are, I'm not saying they're not serious, but it even gets more serious when you have peace talks during this week, and Russia sits on one side of the table and says, we are going to decrease military here, we're going to let you come out there. Words that let people think that they're going to be able to finally get out of a nightmare, only to be bombed and missiled in those same places where they were told by words at a negotiating table that they could move on. Should we believe Putin? Of course not. Do you want to believe any word you hear when you're in that nightmare? Of course, yes. And how about the Supreme Court hearings of this past 10 days? At this point, I'd rather not see it. I'd rather have senators in a room that are private so they could actually do their jobs and ask questions for real about someone's credibility or someone's bona fides. But instead what happens, and by the way, it's not just this round, but it's happened in every round on both sides of the aisle, senators get up and give speeches. Speeches, sometimes without a question at all. Sometimes you get a question, but usually just speeches. And in this day and age, speeches with words that at least half the country believes is truth. So even if they are trying to get at something that might sort of exist underneath the surface, they don't. Instead, they just sort of paint a narrative, and half of America, could be your half, could be my half, it could be whatever, go home and think that that's the truth. Very, very, very dangerous stuff. And comes to perhaps the least important of everything that I've used as an illustration, but something that's obviously really resonated with us. This is the first time in my life, I think, that at least I could remember, that I did not watch the Academy Awards. Probably like a lot of the rest of America, I've sort of gotten bored with it, and I'm a huge, huge movie fan. How many of us have actually been in a real movie theater in a couple of years? So I think that's probably taken something away. Streaming best films is just weird to any of us from our generations, right? It's just not what we know from. I like the big thing of popcorn and the Diet Coke and watching the whole thing. So I didn't watch the Academy Awards. But I watch Morning Joe when I wake up in the morning. And I watch it and I hear, someone did what? And I so didn't believe it that I go downstairs, figure out my dumb person watching a smart television, and I go back and watch it, and I just cannot. My kids are like, Dad, what are you doing? Lauren was gone at a conference. I'm like, can you believe this? This 53-year-old grown man gets up and slaps this 57-year-old grown man in front of 100 million people? It's insane. I still can't believe that it actually happened. I shouldn't say that after these last few years. Like, almost anything is possible now. But Will Smith, I'm not saying he's my favorite. He's not Denzel Washington or Paul Newman or Robert Redford, but I like him. I liked him on television. He's done some great action movies, and he's starting to do some serious stuff. I have not seen the most recent film about the Williams sisters, which I want to see because I love tennis and I'm interested in it. But I couldn't believe that it happened. So I think to myself, Chris Rock, first of all, let's put things into perspective. The Academy Awards are a parade of people that have a life that we only could dream about, have the kind of money we could only dream about, and have the sense of fame and fortune that we could only dream about. So what they do, and what's the reason we laugh, is they get up there and they make fun of themselves, because they know it's sort of a silly life, and they make fun of other people. But even in that game, when you make fun of yourself at a correspondence dinner or at an Academy Awards, these words reach. And if you looked at Jada Smith, you could tell just from that initial face, actress or not, that she was upset. And I know people, I'm guessing you do also, I know several people for some reason of alopecia. And it's not always a very comfortable position, especially in this society, if you like it or not, if you're a woman who's bald, it just doesn't go over well. And I'm not even trying, it's just the society we live in. We don't like that we don't like that idea. We don't like it when people have cancer and alopecia, and this really hit her. And so again, words reach, and I'll never forget that amazing downtrodden face. Now, I say that with the full understanding of, let me tell you one other thing that I was thinking, that Chris Rock, who, by the way, I think handled himself with a lot of dignity. First of all, I don't know how he didn't go down. If Will Smith hit me, I wouldn't get up for a few minutes, I'm guessing. So that's one impressive thing. And then the guy goes on with dignity and with articulation and continues the show. And by the way, if it was me, if I was able to stay up, I don't know if I would have done anything besides hit the guy back. It just would have been a natural reflex. So that was extraordinary. But one day, whoever around here is still alive when Chris Rock dies, is no matter what, his obituary will always have a line in it that said, in 2022, he was hit in front of 100 million people by Will Smith for making fun of his wife for alopecia. And when Will Smith dies, there will be a line in his obituary saying he did A, B, and C, he made $600 million, and he got up at the Academy Awards and he belted a guy. And Jada Smith, the same thing. This will be with them forever. So I should qualify by saying, even though I just judged Chris Rock and his words, it is never, ever, ever an excuse. I don't know what world we live in that we think it's okay to get up and hit another grown person, if that's the way we act. Because, by the way, that's what happens when we worry about gun violence. It becomes very easy. You could hit someone on TV because you're famous, just like I step on your toe and I'm going to take out a gun and shoot you. I mean, this stuff really goes very quickly into that way. And there's a million other things that I'm not going to preach about tonight that I could talk about in terms of society and race and perception, all those things. But let's just stick with the fact that I think we could all agree with that. If you don't like my sermon, I don't think Lois Dyer's coming up and belting me on the bema because she didn't like what I said. But a comedian, maybe you've wanted to before, but a comedian tweeted right after that, so I guess that's what we worry about now. I guess when we're sort of going with our comedy and we go one way or the other, we have to worry about someone coming up and Will Smithing us. So it'll become a word soon. In 10 years, you'll say, oh, you Will Smithed you, and you'll know exactly what that means. Just like Tanya Harding, when we say she Tanya'd her, we know what that means from all those years ago. I end with these two thoughts. I realized this week from the car from which I was stuck and everything else that I've mentioned that I don't know why having thick skin is a virtue. Have thick skin. Like that, kindness is a virtue, generosity is a virtue, love is a virtue. But thick skin? I'm not saying you should have thin skin. And I don't think that you shouldn't live life without wherewithal and grit and a sense of resilience. I believe in all of that. But why in our life do we have to work hard on having a thick skin instead of working hard at helping people act like mensches and helping people with their language choices and their measure when it comes to words? Why can't we work more on that than me having to sit there and build shells around myself because I'm worried constantly that someone's going to say something that's going to go too far or further than it should because my skin wasn't thick enough? Why is that the world we live in? And I thought about that because the other mentioning of skins, see, we have a nice curtain here that a lot of you were involved in bringing here decades ago. But in the temple of old, that thing called a parochet, that curtain, was made out of dolphin skins. Some of you may know that, especially Torah study people. Dolphin skins are a quizzical material to use. Why? Because we're not sure if they're kosher or not. Now, I've never had dolphin, nor do I necessarily worry about that extent of kashrut. But why would we cover the most sacred space we have with something that we're not sure if it's pure or impure? And the rabbis say because every time we approach the ark and are taking out the Torah, we should be really careful about what line we cross and we don't cross. And we should be extra careful about how it is that we talk to each other and treat each other because we don't know which one is pure and which one is impure. It's constantly left unsure and ambiguous, so we have to figure it out by taking the extra step and being good. And the final thought is that Rabbi Joshua goes up to Rabbi Gamliel back into the Talmud and says, when is the Messiah finally going to get here? He said, oh, you didn't know? He's here already. He said, the Messiah's here? Well, where is he? He says, he's the one over there. And where's he pointing? to the outside of the city walls where the lepers are. And what's this rabbi doing who's going to be named the Messiah? He's slowly but surely and methodically wrapping and unwrapping the wounds of all the lepers. And he says when he finishes that, he'll then come and save the rest of us. But he's starting with those who are most ill. He's not there slapping him or hitting him or yelling at him or telling him to put on his damn blinkers in the middle of Ridgewood and Cedar or of Cypress. He's there taking care of those who are most sick to bring healing to the world, to use a measure and a sense of what our words mean and know that they can cut. This whole sticks and stones I've never bought because they really do harm us. The rabbis of old were obsessed with how we use our words. And I don't believe in obsession with anything, but perhaps we should be a little bit more focused and measured on how we use ours, because they really do impact people in the most serious and profound of ways. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
It's hard to believe, but it is the 1st of April, and therefore it is the first Friday of the month of April. And so if you are here, as is our tradition, celebrating a birthday or an anniversary in this month, I will invite you to please rise where you are so that we can offer you a blessing. When I first made the slides for our visual tefillah tonight, I put March anniversary and birthday blessings, and Mark had to call me and say, you know, it's April. And I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's already April. But here it is. And in the month of April, as Rabbi Sternberg mentioned at the start of our service, we celebrate Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the springtime, which is our holiday of Passover. And as part of the practice of Passover, we also read the book Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon. And in Song of Songs, we hear a lot about our souls. And we've been talking throughout our service about the purity of our souls, the way that our souls are fulfilled, are get restored to us, taken from us, all of these different relationships to our souls. And in Song of Songs, it talks about the two lovers, who are these two young people who are sort of chasing each other around the city of Jerusalem and falling in love before each other's very eyes. And in the text it says, I have found the one whom my soul loves. And so as we enter this month of the spring, I hope that for those of you who are celebrating an anniversary, that the blooming of the spring reminds you of that the search for the one that your soul loves, and that you're able to look to the person next to you and be reminded of that search and the fact that you have found that person. And if you are celebrating a birthday this month, I hope that you are able to celebrate the soul that has been given to you, that you are able to be reminded of who you are, what makes you you, and what fulfills you, and what fills your cup and makes your soul sing. And in this month, when, God willing, the weather will turn just a bit warmer and the flowers will bloom and the grass will turn green again, and we will be reminded why it is that we live in the beautiful state of New Jersey, once winter has firmly in our rearview mirror, that we will be able to celebrate the beauty of the world around us, of the people around us, and the beauty that we find within ourselves. So I want to bestow on you that blessing, and we will all join together in the words of Shehechianu, our words of gratitude. So if you are familiar, please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. We praise you, Adonai, and we thank you for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for enabling us to reach this moment in the cycle of our lives and in all of your lives. Amen.
Amen.
If you are not standing, I will invite you to please stand as we turn to the words of Aleinu, and the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishmechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim. המלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
And now, at this point in our service, we turn our thoughts to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people and those of every race and every nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them on this Shabbat, let us meditate on the meaning of love and of loss, of life and of death. As is our tradition here in our community, if you hear the name of one that you may have lost, please feel free to stand to honor their memories, only if you feel so inclined. We first remember those who have passed during this period of Shiva. We remember Bobby Minoff, wife of Arnie, mother of Debbie and Jill, grandmother of Jack, Jennifer, Casey, and Madison. We remember Ira Zarin, husband of Ellen, father of Debbie, Jed, Gary, and Jeffrey, grandfather of Ashley, Rob, and Brett, Courtney, Josh, Tyler, Brandon, and Abby, great-grandmother of Davis, Everly, Bradley, and Oakley. During this period of Shloshim, the traditional Jewish 30-day period of mourning, we remember Lois Schatzberg and Barbara Jean Shapiro Hoffman. And on this day, Yortzeit, the early anniversary of death, we remember Gertrude Davis Asanoff, Audrey Basin, Anita, Sarah Benjamin, Yetta Shoya Berman, Dr. Elliot Mark Bernstein, Maurice Bick, Dr. Harry Block, Ada Blum, Sherman Borkan, Abraham Braunstein, Rose Gottlieb Broad, Jack Chesner, Samuel Cohen, Rita B. Cohen, Louis Dresner, Dr. Nathan J. Fishbein, Albert M. Fisher, Theodore Hack, Rosella Grata Hanauer, Minnie S. Heinemann, Dr. Daniel Mark Hittner, Edith Katz Hoffman, Frida Gluckhorn, Pauline Jelinek, Dr. Milton L. Kamler, George Katz, Norman Katz, Bertha P. Kessler, Morris W. Kessler, Sylvia R. Kosky, Monroe Critchman, Ralph London, Minnie Judas Lubowit, Jean Macon, Albert Macon, Frida Kramer Marks, William Mayer, Lillian Miller, Edith J. Mindell, Joseph Molman, Ralph S. Oppenheimer, Doris I. Park, Sylvia Ravitz, Blanche S. Schenken, Dr. Maurice A. Scher, Morton Schiff Jr., Emma Strauss-Schlosser, Moses Sickle, Leonard J. Skolnick, Irving Smith, Harold Sporn, Esther Steinberg, Cynthia Jean Stolman, Arnold Strasberg, Julius Terry, Nathan Tereski, and Jenny Wallach. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May the memory of the righteous be a blessing to each and every one of us praying here in the Shabbat Eve. Let's honor their memories by inviting their souls in to dwell among us as we rise as one community to say their words of Kaddish. They're found on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, biolma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam ulolmei al maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yolma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huyasei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn here and those who are bereaved everywhere. As together as one community, we say amen. Please be seated. So good to have all of you who are here with us in person. Those of you who are streaming, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a welcome into our chapel as well. Please feel free at home to click on the link for our order of worship. Here you have them with you. Just want to reference a couple of important announcements out of many of them. Rabbi Sternberg's course of Sacred Eating, Jewish Food Ethics, will be continuing this Sunday at 9:45 a.m. in person for bagels and for study. At home, I guess you have to provide your own bagels, but the study will be just the same. We want to make sure that you are made aware of our second Seder. We are doing that again in person after a couple of years of not doing it. I know everyone has different comfort levels, but those of you who feel comfortable, we will be here. With the same spirit and love that TBJ has always brought to the Seder, so we don't want you to be alone, so please feel free to sign up for that as well. I hope you got the letter today that we put out a call not longer than 10 days ago to partner with our dear friends at Stephen Wise Synagogue in Los Angeles and United Hatzalah, our dear partner with whom we've been connected for over a decade. They had this idea that they were taking medical supplies from Israel to Ukraine and putting people back who were trying to flee at a clip of about 160 at a time. It was $100,000, which we thought was a steep ask given all the different expenses that we have. We put it out there, and as of today, we have raised $260,000 between the two synagogues. But more importantly, you should see the pictures and the video that are on your computer screens. We sent them out. And it shows people being rescued and people on the plane and people arriving at Ben Gurion speaking in Ukrainian, in Hebrew, in English. And the bottom line is, if it weren't for you and for our brothers and sisters out in Los Angeles and our partners in Israel, this wouldn't be. So you saved 165 lives, which is an extraordinary thing and not nearly enough for what's going on there, but we did a piece of our part. And the other money is not going to be used on planes going there, but there are ambucycles now being brought to the border. They're pinpointing on GPS Holocaust survivors who are now going through a Holocaust a second time. And brave people are using these ambucycles, going into Ukraine, bringing them, putting them on the ambucycles and getting them back out across the border. And that is something like $10,000 a hit. So that's what the rest of the money is going for. And you may remember Mark Gerson and Erica Gerson were members here, moved back to the city. He is the chair of Hatzalah, and he and Erica are matching the money that we raise. I suspect we'll get to $300,000, so all in all, it will be a $600,000 donation. Again, a drop in the bucket given what's going on, but I know that it makes us feel good that we could actually do something in a really helpless situation. So as we say in our language, Yisher Koach, the honor is all yours, and it should be enriched, and may there be peace in that land and, of course, in all lands, given the extraordinary and horrible terrorism that has hit Israel this past week again as well. So lots to pray for, lots to act upon, and luckily we have young people growing up who we could depend on for that. So Chloe and Sylvie, we're going to ask you to come on up to help us conclude services by chanting Kiddush and Motzi. Look excited, it's okay. This is not like, a horrible thing. This is an exciting thing. You're coming of age. Come on up. Do I have to pull you? Come on. You're about to get Kiddush cups that Cantor Fishbein is going to hand you, and these are Kiddush cups presented to you on behalf of our Brotherhood and Women's Association. You should use them not when you're frowning, but when you're smiling for many, many years to come. We're really proud of you, really proud to share with your family. So Cantor Fishbein, you guys step up.
Asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kasho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinhilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila l'mikra'e kodesh zeher l'yetziat mitzrayim kivanu b'charta leotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodesh Shabbat.
Amen. Drink up, guys. There's nothing to be nervous about. That was awesome.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Nothing to be concerned about. That was beautiful. Well done, guys. Looking so forward to tomorrow. Mazel tov to your family. And you are released for now.
Those are for you, yeah.
Yes, the Kiddush cups you can keep.
Cute, she said.
She's cute? Is that what she said? All right. Cantor?
So we're going to conclude with the Nigun, allowing our souls to be lifted one last time together as we lift our voices in unison as one community. Please join us. Dear God, may you give us strength, and may you give us and people everywhere the manifold blessing that we know is shalom, that we indeed know is peace. Please join me in saying amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.